Okay, so this is a lecture all about aims, hypotheses and research design. So it's another research methods one, and it's actually fairly straightforward, which is quite good. Okay, so we start with aims. Now, aims, just like in all the different sciences, in psychology is pretty much the same. It's a statement or a question about what your researcher is intending to find out about in their study. Okay, so for example, does drinking coffee in the day make you sleep less at night? Yeah, my research, the examples we're going to use will be tied to this aim that we want to study, we want to investigate. Okay, and that in a nutshell is what an aim is. You can be asked, given a scenario, to come up with an aim yourself, to suggest an appropriate aim, etc., etc. But essentially, it's just this question statement, what they want to find out about. Okay. So hypotheses is something a little bit different. Now, you've probably written these in science before, but essentially they are a clear statement of what you think will happen. They are a prediction, okay, and they're always written in that future tense, okay. They'll never be past tense, and never be present tense. It'll always be what will happen, all right. Because at the end of the study, your researcher is either going to support or reject their hypothesis, all right. Now I'm going to say that yes, we definitely did find this happened, or that actually no, it didn't, all right. And like everything in research methods, these have to be fully operationalized. So operationalization, remember, is this idea of making things measurable, putting it into kind of specific measurable units. So we're not saying that people remember more words, we're saying people remember a higher number of words, because that's actually what we'd be measuring. Yeah, is cat more word or less word than deoxyribonucleic acid? Yeah, they both count as one word. This is kind of the difficulty we have. So we have to be really specific in what we're saying in the hypothesis. You have to be really clear about what you are actually measuring. Okay, so if we want to measure the number of letters in the word, say the number of letters in each word. If we want to remember actually the number of words they are recalling, then say you're recalling or measuring the number of words that they do actually recall. Okay. So for our example, I've said here, participants who drink 300 millilitres of coffee have fewer hours sleep than participants who drink 300 millilitres of water. Okay, so I've given the exact units of measurement of the coffee and the water, so if you did want to repeat my study, you could do so yourself. I wouldn't recommend it. You don't know much about ethics and replication, all this kind of stuff, yes, so please don't. But the information is there if you really did want to. All right, and also I haven't said they'll have less sleep, because that's also not operationalized, that you're not really being very clear what you mean with less sleep. I've said actually fewer hours. Now this tells you as someone else, another researcher, that I've been measuring the number of hours they have slept for. Okay. Now you might measure kind of amount of sleep differently. You might measure the different times you spend in the different stages of sleep, or something else that you've come up with as a measure of sleep. But I'm saying this is what I'm doing. I'm measuring the number of hours when our participants have had 300 millilitres of coffee or 300 millilitres of water. Yeah, really nice, straightforward. So there are two main types of hypotheses that you need to know. Our first is called a directional hypothesis, which can also be called a one-tailed hypothesis as well. You might see that written about sometimes. It's the same thing, but in particular there will be a difference, and it tells us what the difference will be. Okay. Then we've got our non-directional hypothesis, which can also be called a two-tailed, and again it predicts a difference, but it doesn't tell us what that difference is. So whereas our directional hypothesis might tell us that girls will be better than boys at football, yeah, our non-directional hypothesis would just say there will be a difference in the ability of football between boys and girls. Yeah, it doesn't say which one's better, just says that there is a difference there. Right. So writing hypotheses, directional hypotheses always follow this lovely structure of IV, DV, IV. Now you see I've split the IV into two here. These are just the two conditions. IV1 is condition 1, IV2 is condition 2. Okay, essentially I also call it a DV sandwich, because you're putting your DV in between both halves of your IV. So in terms of what we did earlier, the hypothesis I showed you, that was a directional hypothesis, and I've colour coded it here for you. So the first condition of our IV is participants drinking 300 millilitres of coffee. Yeah, the DV, what I'm measuring, this is the number of hours sleep they've had. I'm saying what that is going to go down. Yeah, and then our IV2, a second condition of our independent variable, participants who are drinking 300 millilitres of water. Okay, so nice and straightforward. Our non-directional hypotheses, again, they always begin with there will be a. Then it's either a difference in an experiment, a correlation or association if it's a correlational study, etc., etc. And they always follow the structure of DV, IV, IV. It's the easiest way to write them by far. So another example here, there will be a difference. Okay, so we're starting out as non-directional in the number of hours of sleep recorded, or DV, between participants who drink 300 millilitres of coffee and participants who drink 300 millilitres of water. Okay, so again, both conditions are IV, just there, nice and simple. Now, what I'd recommend you start doing when you are writing hypotheses by yourselves and looking at studies at home, get 2 different colours of highlighters or 3 different colours like I've done here, and really kind of make it clear what's the IV, what's the DV, and you'll start seeing they'll actually be very easy to split and write hypotheses for. It will take a bit of practice. We're going to do some of this in lessons and for homeworks and things, but it is something that we have to get right. So, when do you use a directional hypothesis versus a non-directional? This is what we need to really be 100% with. So you use a directional hypothesis when there is past research, be it a theory, be it a study, that tells you what this difference is. So it's telling you what to expect. Okay, so if there is evidence in the past that does suggest that girls are better at hockey than boys, then we can predict that they should follow this previous research, and that's why we use our directional hypothesis. Okay. However, if there is no previous research, or if there is contradictory research in the past, then we can't pick whichever one we think is going to happen and predict that. We have to predict that there should be a difference between these two halves of our IV in their DV. Okay. And that is essentially everything we need to know about aims and hypotheses. Like I say, we're going to have lots of practice at writing these because you need to be really good at them. What I want to do is make some additional notes on the textbook, page 182. Again, answers questions 1, 2 and 3 on page 183 in the big blue apply your knowledge box. That's going to set us up nicely for the lesson. Alright. So moving on from there, once you've made those notes, let's look at research design. So research design is different to research methods in that it's all about how you organise your participants, how you're actually investigating your aim, and how you're kind of essentially moving around your participants. So look at our experiment again. So who would we be getting to complete our 2 conditions? We've got one condition drinking water, one condition drinking coffee. Now there's couple of main ways we could be doing this. Either we have one group of people doing both conditions on different days. So we have one group of people who on one day will drink the coffee and record how long they sleep, and the next day they'll drink the water and we record again how long they sleep. Or what we have is we have 2 separate groups doing one condition each, and we'll be comparing their results together. So we can do this in one day if we wanted to, or we can still do it over several days. But we're going to be looking at either one group of people's results within 2 conditions, or 2 groups of people in one condition each. Okay, so we have 3 types of experimental design that you have to be able to describe, to evaluate and apply to different scenarios. Alright, so our first one is independent groups, and just like the name suggests, you have different participants in each condition. The conditions are completely independent from one another. Our second one is repeated measures, so we have the same participants being used in each condition, so we have the same people in condition 1 as condition 2. They're kind of repeating the experiment themselves, hence repeated measures. Now our third one's kind of a middle ground. It's a mix of the 2. Essentially it's different participants but who are similar in each condition. So what you'll do here is you will match your participants on certain important characteristics. So in terms of things like sleep and how long people sleep for, some people just have a natural way of sleeping for longer than others. So what we might want to do is record people's natural sleep before the study, and then we make sure that in both conditions, water and coffee, that we have people who naturally sleep a very long time, people who naturally sleep a middle amount of time, and people who naturally sleep a very short amount of time. Okay, we could also match them for different things like gender, age, to make sure we had the same kind of types of people in both conditions. So we're matching these people in pairs and then splitting those pairs up between our 2 conditions. Okay, hence matched pairs. So designs are actually quite simple as long as you're not muddling them up with methods, because what they are is just in the name. So let's look at some of this evaluation. So we'll start with repeated measures, because why not? So they've all got strengths and weaknesses. So main strength of repeated measures is your participant variables, your individual differences. These are kept constant. Okay, I don't have to worry about one group sleeping for longer, maybe because just by chance I've gotten in there people who are just longer sleepers naturally, because they're the same people as the ones who are in my previous condition. Okay, so any problems you have independent differences or individual differences, these are kept the same across them. They are controlled. Okay. This does allow us to use more powerful statistics. Now at the minute this is just going to be a kind of a statement you can say that is a strength. Alright, at the end of the second year when we start looking at statistical measures in a lot more depth with our kind of our A2 psychology, you're going to see the exact differences we can do between parametric and non-parametric testing. Okay, so that's something to look forward to. And also, if we have the same people in both conditions, we will just need fewer participants. We don't need to recruit 30 people to be in our study. We can recruit 15 because we will have 30 pieces of data in total once each of those 15 has done both conditions. Okay. However, there are some problems. Main one with repeated measures is what we call order effects. Now, there's something called practice and boredom, and essentially what this argues is that people's results in the second condition will be invariably affected by their performance in the first. Yeah, that's pretty much a complicated way of saying people either do better second time round because they've had a lot of practice, yeah, they already know what to do, they know what to expect and everything like that, or they do worse in the second condition because they're really bored, they're fed up, they don't want to be doing it anymore, they've already done it all once already. Okay, and this obviously would affect our results, it affects the internal validity and causes problems for us. Okay, and the other one, demand characteristics. If you see both conditions of an IV, it's very obvious what that IV is. This allows you to guess the aim. This means that people are likely to change their behaviour to match what they think the aim is, and obviously they're not acting naturally then. Okay. And again, if you're doing a memory test, if we're testing people's memory for words or pictures or anything like that, then we have to use different tests. Yeah, not every time will we have to use them, but a lot of the time we will. And this obviously is costly. You'll have to match the tests on difficulty, which can be quite tricky, etc., etc. So we've got our area 3 here for repeated measures. Independent groups, well, main strength, no order effects. Yeah, if you have different people in each condition, there's going to be no order effects, no practice, no boredom. Right, so be less likely participants acting on demand characteristics because you only see one condition of the IV, only one half of it, so they can't really guess what's going to be changing in your other condition. And obviously you can use the same test in both conditions. Okay. However, weaknesses, participant variables are going to be different. These individual differences are going to come into account. Okay, and this is just going to be, it's going to be something that happens. You can't avoid it. If you are using different people, there'll be differences between them that could affect your results. Okay, this leads us to being less able to use some powerful statistics. So we are, again, something makes a lot more sense at the end of the second year. And you're obviously going to need more participants. If you need 30 people, you're going to have to hire or find 30 participants. Okay. Now, if you want to save yourself a bit of time and revision, if you look back at this slide and the slide beforehand, you'll actually notice that the AO3 for independent groups and repeated measures is just swapped. Now, all the strengths of independent groups are the weaknesses of our repeated measures and vice versa. So that will save you a bit of time in the long run. Match pairs, the strengths of these, obviously you are keeping your participant variables constant or as constant as possible because you're matching people beforehand on similarities that you think are going to be important. So if you're doing a memory test and I'm worried about IQ, well I know already that in both of my groups, because I've already measured their IQ, that in each condition we have people with high, medium and low IQ. So we're keeping these kind of variables a constant. This again allows us to be able to use more powerful statistics, which is obviously good, and we don't get any order effects as well. With no order effects only being in one condition each, obviously less demand characteristics. So here we see the strengths here being kind of the best of both, yeah. But unfortunately the weaknesses is pretty similar too. Obviously, yeah, you can use the same test. So big problem with obviously match pairs is that's actually really difficult to match participant variables. Yeah, you essentially have to do a test before your test, which is obviously going to take more time, take more money, and it's going to be on the whole more difficult. Also trying to find out and figure out what is going to be a very important variable to match on is something that requires a lot of time and a lot of thinking, okay, which a lot of people don't have the ability to do in terms of time and money and constraints of research. Okay, like I say, this takes a lot of time, it costs you a lot of money. And obviously you're going to need more participants compared to your repeated measures, yeah, or repeated groups. You're going to have for 30 people in your study total, you're going to have to find 30 people. Okay, so again, the strengths and weaknesses here are kind of a mixture of both independent groups and repeated measures because that is what our match pairs is. At the end of the day, it's kind of a culmination, it's the best of both. All right. If you've had a study on these ones, make notes on pages 184 and 185. Be really careful that you are making kind of notes on how to deal with these limitations because I'll be asking you questions about these in class. So things like order effects, how do we actually deal with order effects? There's a set way in which we do this that you will have to know for the exam, so make sure you are making notes on that as well. And on page 185 there's another blue apply knowledge box. I'd like you to answer question 1 from here. So you've got 2 little bit things to be getting on with, to be bringing to the lesson, and that should be nice and doable. Okay, brilliant. See you later.